Sportify is a fantasy football data application in which the Yahoo and fantasy data API are aggregated and presented to the user in a more graphical and visualized presentation using technologies such as Chart.js and D3. When the user lands on the landing page, they are shown the top 20 quarterbacks, wide receivers, running backs, and tight ends based off of 2015 numbers, and the players are shown and pitted against each other based off of a Chart.js chart visualization. If in particular the user is interested in Cam Newton, what they can do is they can click on Cam Newton's bar chart and you'll get access to Cameron Newton's Twitter feed via the Twitter API, and you can keep up with all the personal up-to-date tweets that Cam Newton will have. On top of that, when the user wants to navigate to a different section of the website, they can go to the players table. They can see a call to the database is made, and it will return the top 25 players from last year's 2015 fantasy numbers. If the user is more interested in a player such as Cam Newton, they can click on the name and a breakdown of Cam Newton's week-by-week numbers will be shown, as well as a radar chart that is used via D3.js to get a breakdown of how he does compared to the rest of the league. Along with that, they'll also have access to the tweets for that individual player so that they can keep up to date with all of their personals. If the user is more interested in how Arizona's wide receivers are doing, because they have a personal preference to Arizona, they can check out the 2015 season for all their wide receivers, and you'll see a breakdown of Larry Fitzgerald, John Smokey Brown, Michael Floyd, J.G. Nelson, and Jaron Brown. And they could see how they were doing for the 2015 season, and a provided breakdown will also be shown as well. So when the user navigates to the schedule components, a Axios request will be made out to the database from the client, and the current week's schedule will be rendered, will be sent back through the database, from the database to the client, and the client will then render the upcoming game schedule for that week. Each team will be applied an individual class component, individual class that will apply these specified colors for each team, and it's a really cool feature because it gives the look and feel of the actual NFL team's colors. If the user would like to see how week 6 is doing, they can navigate there. Same process will be made. An Axios request will be sent from the client to the database, and the database will send back the week 6 schedules. Now, any fantasy data application wouldn't be complete without a way to integrate your current fantasy football team into the application. So the user is able to click on the Yahoo symbol, and a Yahoo OAuth authentication strategy has been used to allow the user to integrate their current teams into the application. So for example, I'm not doing too well in this league, but I'm going to go ahead and check out my league, and it looks like I'm losing a decent amount this week, but hopefully I do a little better there. And once integrated, they can check out their individual teams by going to find My Fantasy Teams, and go ahead and click there, and my team will show up with all the current players on the roster. I can go ahead and see how Julio Jones is doing. It looks like he had a pretty good week. So that about sums it up for Sportify.online. Let me go ahead and give you a breakdown of the high-level architecture. Now, like every full-stack application, the web client was made using React, Redux, React Router, D3, and Chart.js. The web server was done in Node and Express. This deployment was done through AWS and was Dockerized as well. And the web server also made API calls out to external APIs such as Twitter, Yahoo, and Fantasy Data. Once the external calls were made, the data was stored in the Postgres database and was updated through two workers. One interesting problem that I ran into while doing this application was the Twitter handles for each of the players were not available. And in order to combat that, I went ahead and scraped Google's first line given a specific query, such as Julio Jones Twitter handle. And usually, most of the case, the first line in Google was a link to Julio Jones Twitter API. So I was able to store that into the Postgres database so that whenever the web server made any requests for those Twitter handles, they were readily available. And on the left side, you also have the Fantasy Data API with a Python worker. One of the main issues and reasons why both Yahoo and Fantasy Data API were used was the Yahoo API only allows you to request for the information of one player at a time. And in order to find a way around that and save some dev time, the Fantasy Data API was used to get the Yahoo IDs, and a cron job was created so that all 1,000+ players can be requested from Yahoo using the Fantasy Data Yahoo IDs. This was again stored as a microservice into its own database, and the original database was updated via a worker and made readily available for any server requests. And that about sums up the architecture for Fantasy Data. And I hope you have enjoyed this walkthrough, and I look forward to hearing from you soon.